Hello, everyone, and welcome again to another portion of the Action Sci-Fi Fantasy Creators Lounge. I am your host, Barry Gaines of Gaines Entertainment, as well as the writer and director and producer and stunt choreographer for the hit series A World of Worlds that you can see on Amazon Prime, Google Play, BingeHard.com, SoFi.tv, and soon Green Apple Entertainment. But right now, I want to introduce a gentleman who's been in the game for several years now, started off with nothing and is just rising and rising and rising in the industry. He has done nothing but just really compelling and interesting action movies and series, and you're gonna have to kind of check this out. So let me just introduce my man, Thomas Frick. What's up, Thomas? What's up, baby? How you doing?
How's it going?
Good, man, good. Good to see you, man. Thanks for being on.
Too. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's nice to have other directors. Especially in the action genre. There's not a lot here in Florida, at least that I'm aware of. But we're hoping that changes because it's really an art form that everybody really appreciates. I mean, they make the most money at the box office, right?
That's what we say, right? Exactly. They do make the most money. So we're in the right direction. We're going in the right direction.
We're in the right field, that's for sure.
Now, people have seen your movies, here and there in film festivals. They've seen you on YouTube for the past several years doing your series. It's The Darkest Case. Is that right?
That's the one that's currently it's actually going into its last season. It's been running since 2014, so about 6 years now.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. And you've gone through many actors. You've been through many situations, and you started this on your own. You wrote it, you directed it, you produced it. So this is pretty much your baby, man. But but just like doing all that, where did this all start? Like, how did you even get into wanting to be a director or writer?
Actually, I think it happened when I was in 7th grade. I actually made I made several films with my parents' video camera when I was a kid, but I made a sequel to Jaws. It was called Jaws Return.
Jaws. Okay.
It's terrible. You'll never see it probably. I mean, you may see it, but it'll never be public. It's terrible. But we basically would make sequels to Jaws, and we'd get these cardboard boxes and put them on boogie boards and make mouths in them to make them look like sharks and stuff. And it was really bad, but it eventually, that little film that I did when I auditioned to be a part of the film program at Booker High School, for some reason they were like, oh, this kid's got some talent. I'm thinking to myself, what are they seeing that I'm not? So, but yeah, I went to school there, and Miss King and Mr. Loomis were my teachers there. And they really taught me the basics and, how to get involved. And then from there, I just took it on from there. And that's what I've been doing for the past, I guess, not really professionally, but out there on YouTube probably for about 8 years.
Wow, 8 years. Wow. Yeah. Now, when you started all this, did you start with friends and family as the actors and the participants in the show? Or, how did you even start? First of all, I should just go back. How did you get the idea for The Darkest Case?
Okay, well, for Darkest Case specifically, so I just came off filming my first TV series called Narrows, which was kind of like a series, kind of like a Jason Bourne type conspiracy thing. And I wanted to do something a little bit more personal. So I started watching this TV show called True Detective on HBO.
Oh, yeah, that's a good show.
Yeah. The first season literally captivated me in a way where I was like, I want to make something where people feel something at the end of it. Now, so what I came up with, my friend Nathan was originally the main character. He was going to play the main lead. And after a couple screen tests and whatnot, I knew that I had to switch something up. And so I ended up I was working at a Radio Shack at the time, and there was a man named Caleb who eventually was the co-writer of season 1 and season 2. He did the co-writing on it, especially for his dialogue. I met him there, and there's something about him. I remember out of the blue, I just said, I want you to play the lead in this series. And he was kind of like caught off guard. He's like, really? I was like, yes. So I got him involved and whatnot, and he really brought something to that character, especially, and when you see him in this final season, you'll definitely see his full character arc. But I gotta give him props because he was heavily involved in the creation of the first and second season.
No, that's good. All right, so
Yeah.
he's been around for a little while now, from the beginning. I mean, all these
Mm-hmm.
6 years, man. No, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, what I mean, what inspired you just to keep going? I mean, because the reason I ask, because I know a lot of times, you know, we all do projects where it just tires us out sometime, and just to kind of keep the inspiration going, what inspires you? What keeps you running?
Well, actually, what's very funny is there's been a lot of times. I mean, even recently, um, to kind of give a little of a history about it. I don't. I mean, people who know me know that I have it, but I have OCD really bad. And if you watch the series, my character actually has that too, and that was kind of why this show is kind of so personal to me, is because I brought that part of myself into that character. Um, and I don't really go out publicly and announce it like all the time or anything, but it was my way of kind of being like, hey, let me put that into the show, and then people who have it, maybe they'll kind of be like, oh, I can relate because I have the same thing. Because I used to think I was the only one that was dealing with this. Why do I have this going on? And then my dad was the one who told me, he's like, trust me, there's other people that deal with the
Yeah, we
same
all
thing.
have a little bit of that. Everyone does, man.
Yeah, and it became something. That first season, actually, it took 2 years to make that one. And that's because after the third episode, a lot of people moved away and a lot of people left the show. So there was this whole recasting, rescheduling, changing the story. And I just moved out of town, and all my actors were down here in Sarasota. So I had to kind of, fix everything. Me and Caleb came together and we kind of redid some stuff. So that one took 2 years. And then when I did the second season, I said, I'm not going to take 2 years to make it. We did it in 5 months. And then when it came to this third one, I was like, you know what? I liked the way the second one ended, but I felt that it wasn't complete. So when I came up with the third season idea, I said, this is how I want it to end. So with this season, Caleb's character, you'll see him up here. But without giving anything away, if you haven't seen it, his character shows up a few times. But as far as the creative process on this one, it was actually strictly on me. And that might have been a burden on myself, because this one, we started this in probably July of 2018, and we're still finishing it up now. So it's about 2 years. So
pretty much it's kind of like,
yeah,
the inspiration, the drive is just to kind of complete the doggone thing.
Yeah.
The story itself pretty much runs its own course, and it kind of pulls you along with it. I'm quite sure.
Yeah, and people used to say to me, don't leave any, like, I would start something. I completed my first series. I got that one done. And then I'd start another one, this being Darkest Case Season 1, and I didn't finish it for 2 years. And they're like, hey, how did it end and whatnot? And I was like, well, money, scheduling, all that stuff came to a factor. And I would start something else. And then people are like, wait, no, don't start something else. Finish this, because we want to know where it is. Don't start something if you're not going to complete it. So I've kind of adapted that mentality, and believe me, especially on this last one.
That's good that's really good advice for that. But you go now, you figure all these couple years, all these several years, doing this series and everything, you've gone through, like you mentioned just now, cast, and you've gone through different cast members. Going through different cast members, what kind of characteristics do you look for? Like, if you want to say, hey, listen, you know what? If you want to be part of this crew, they got to have this. Like, you got to have what is that quality that you look for in an actor?
Well, if we're talking about that casting, at first, when I did my first series, I was just like, whoever can help me.
Yeah, well, right, exactly.
I wasn't really thinking about that. Even if you watch me act in my first series, Narrows especially, I couldn't act my way out of a paper box. I was pretty bad. But you know, as time went on, that, especially after watching True Detective, I knew I was like, I need people that can bring something. So, and part of casting Caleb, which was probably the best thing I did, that's really what I started to focus on more, is people who could actually emote and not look like they're reading off a script, but take that dialogue and make it feel real. So when I went through that casting process, the story with Caleb is what happened with him. As far as any of the other characters, they would be friends because they were reliable. Friends were always reliable back then, especially when we had less responsibility that we do than we do now.
Right, yeah.
Because as time goes on, we get older. It's a lot more difficult. But I would really look for characteristics that would build, and also the physicality. Because although Darkest Case isn't like an action-based series, there is scenes of action, and I need people to do it convincingly. And you'll see, especially with this last season, when I went for Clinton to play the main lead in this one for the villain.
Clinton Bailiff, by the way.
Yeah. By the way, he's an amazing actor. I don't care what he tells you; he's really awesome, especially in this.
Yes, he is.
But I would tell him, I'd be like, "Hey, can you do this move?" He's like, "I've never done it before." I was like, "Well, if you can't do it, we'll do something else." Next day, we show up on set, and he's like doing the move, and I'm like, I know stuff I can't even do, and I'm expecting out of him, and he could do it. So he adapted. Right. So when it came to that, people who could do the action sequences and who could act and make you feel something. This last season, you'll see, and I don't have any shame in saying this, but when I was editing the last episode, which I'm currently wrapping up now, maybe it's because I'm saying goodbye, but I literally was crying, and I called up Caleb, and I haven't talked to this kid in like 6 months, and I'm like, it's over. And he's like, what's wrong? He like thought I was going through a breakup or something. I was like, no, it's coming to an end. He's like, what's wrong, dude? Do you need help? And I'm like, the show's coming to an end. And he goes, man, he's like, you're freaking me out. Like, he's like, you know, and he knew it was an emotional part for me, especially because this season is pretty much my way of saying goodbye to this character and whatnot. But if anything, this one, you will feel something at the end. I can promise you that.
No, I think we're looking forward to seeing when it finally gets out there. So if anyone hasn't seen it, go on YouTube and you can catch up on this series.
Yeah.
But now as a director, what do you find the most challenging to do these? I mean, because as a director and writer and producer, it's different than just being a director. You have other hats and everything kind of falls on your shoulders, but there's always something that you would say, if anything, this is the hardest thing to kind of work on when I do my films. What for you, what is that?
I'd say there's 3 things specifically as to what you need to have prepared. First of all, which I didn't have really with season 1, like the first 2 episodes are written out, but the other ones we had to kind of write as we were going, is always have a script ready. That is your blueprint. Even if you don't go it off verbatim, you need something there that's beginning, middle, and end. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's kind of like me and you are. We also edit. I think that every director, and you've said it yourself too, should know how to edit just in case. But since we do it, it's good because we know how we see it in our head and how we want it to be on screen. I say that's a good thing, is to know how to edit, even if that's not going to be your job. And then the third thing is know when to take a break. And the reason why, and eventually I intend on releasing a documentary with Caleb about the struggle to get this whole thing done. Because you'll see there is some footage on there, behind the scenes footage there's some fights that were going on behind the scenes. And then also my own mental, battle that I was going on with my OCD would actually come out during takes. And there's one particular one, and I don't mind sharing this, but there was one, we were filming my angle for a conversation during this really emotional scene. And I was just having the OCD panic attack starting to brew up. And then on camera, I just unloaded on camera. And, my camera person was like, what is going on? Because they didn't know what was going on. They were just kind of like, oh my God, what's wrong? And I kind of had to explain it to them because it's like, how are they supposed to know?
Right.
And, you know, I just told them this is what's happening. And so what I did is I took 6 months off. And my original intended release was going to be October of last year. And I just couldn't meet it because I knew every time I tried to get to that camera again, it was happening. So I had to take about 6 months off to kind of get myself together because mental health is so important.
Yes,
So that was the most important thing, is knowing to take a break or step away and take a breather.
that's good. No, so it looks like you had some kind of a support team, although they didn't know, but they were there for you. Meaning that after the 6 months, I mean, they came back. Soon everyone came back and went on board and, you know, got back to work.
Well, the good thing of the way we scheduled it too is most of the stuff that happened during that time in the beginning was all the actors that were either out of the city. Like for instance, the actress who plays the lead in season 3, she lives in Orlando, and she would drive over to us in Tampa and film with us. No problem at all. Was always there, ready, read her lines, knew everything, no questions asked. So, you know, we got all of their character stuff done first because I knew towards the end, that would be where I could bring myself into the series and kind of finish my character stuff, because I can be available when I need to be, but everybody else has a schedule in the life, you know?
Yeah. Now for the actors, do you look for experienced actors or do you look for newcomers, or does it matter to you when you out there saying, okay, listen, I need a part, I have no one here? Do you go ahead and say, I just need a body, or I need someone experienced, or I don't need? What do you prefer? Like, what's your thing? Do you have one?
Well, I think as time's gone on, like I said in the beginning, I really didn't pay too much attention to who could act. It was just whoever was my friend and was available, they came to the rescue. But now with that being a thing, because you have to sell, an audience needs to believe it, otherwise they check out right away. I really wanted to focus on people who had, especially if they had a show reel or a demo reel, people who had that, it really helps it stand out because we can actually see you act. Or if they sent in an audition tape. When we were casting the main role for the season 3, the actress's name is Sailor. She sent in her audition, reading the script, and instantly within probably the first like 2 or 3 minutes, I knew, I was like, that is the character of Anna. Like, she is the one that's going to carry it, because really in this 3rd season, it's not a detective story at that point. It's kind of about how the media is portraying my character as a, they're spinning a story in a way to make it sell. And she is like, this doesn't sound right, because this guy has been helping the detective department find this serial killer for all these years and was being helpful. And now all of a sudden he's turned a new leaf. So her character in that way comes in and is like, hey, I want to prove your innocence. And at first I'm resisting. I'm like, I don't care what they say about me. They can say whatever they want. It's not true. But as time goes on, it's like, it's not even about that. It's about finding his inner peace. And that's kind of how this goes forward. So I needed somebody that could sell that. And her having that, kind of charisma and acting, it kind of was like, okay, this is the character that's going to carry the story, because really it is about her story this time around.
Right. And with the writing, how long does it take you to write? Like, I know it's an episodic feature. I mean, episodic series, obviously a series, right? So how long does it take you to write one of these anyway?
Well, this final season, it took me about probably 3 or 4 months to do all 5 scripts. And this time it was all on my own. Okay. I didn't have any co-writer this time. This was just like, I wanted it to be my send-off kind of thing. So, this one took about 3 or 4 months. I wrote all 5. So I had a blueprint. And as time went on, if I wanted to change things, I could go back and be like, hey, I want to change this dialogue. And there were several revisions, especially done to the last one, because I would come up with new ideas. And other characters had to be switched out. But and that goes back to the first rule, is always have your scripts, because that will always be your guide.
That's right. You need a blueprint or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, when you go on set, this is kind of getting into the weeds of being a director and a writer. during actual a session, do you have a prep? Do you have something you go to get yourself right? Because as you already mentioned that you do have an OCD issue, and you battle with that. So for yourself and for people out there, every time you're ready to film, like that day, do you have a prep for yourself to kind of get yourself where you need to be?
Yeah. To kind of go into some detail about this, it's and actually more than anything, I have to thank my girlfriend for this, because she's been putting up with a lot with this whole issue. But I have to basically get out of the negative mindset and go into a positive one. Even when I used to have this thing where I would actually dread going and working on something as the years went on, because it's so much work. And you know this too, you get stressed out when you're working on your stuff. You're doing this all on your own, essentially. We're editing, we're writing, we're directing, we're producing. All the money's coming out of us. Yeah, all that's, and I'm not discrediting anybody that is also involved. Like all the actors and all the crew members that have ever been a part of this, I want to say thank you right now, because if you didn't help me and believe in me when nobody else would, this wouldn't be possible. So this is all thanks to them. As far as the creative part on the end, where we're actually, putting the episodes together and the movies together, it's such a hard task. And the mental preparation is being like, hey, this needs to get done. The longer you wait, the longer it's going to take to get it done. So I had to wake up every morning, and I would, either look at my girlfriend or a crew member, and I'd be like, today's going to be a good day. We're going to get through this. No matter how long it takes, we're going to get through this. And that's kind of like what my prep was for it. And also on the creative side, again, is having the storyboards. Storyboards really help, because then it helps your crew members know what the shots are going to look like when they make it to screen.
Okay, so you do storyboards.
Yeah, especially for the fight scenes. Yeah, because it makes it easier.
Okay, so you draw? I know you can draw.
I could draw a little bit. I'm not as talented, but actually, a shout out to my girlfriend and actually my friend Tony. My girlfriend and Tony are the designers of the posters for the show. So if you see any graphic material from that I post online of a poster or an advertisement, those are them. My girlfriend's a very talented drawer, and he's a very good graphic designer. So shout out to both of them.
Shout out to them. What up? What up?
Yeah.
Now, one thing too, when you film everything, you're writing everything, and this is your baby, it's like, all the nuances. Now, when you start getting into the editing room, what do you find tough when you start putting this together?
The editing room, editing is my favorite part, because, and you know this too, because you can make it how you want it.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
So when I get in there, for example, let's say we shoot all the coverage, we think we have all the coverage. You get into the editing room, you're like, I really want that shot. And sometimes you can't. Let's say there's a scheduling issue and somebody can't come back. Like you only had them for one day.
That's
and
right.
Can't come back. It's figuring out a way to tell that story without that image. So I would say, if you don't have the coverage, the most difficult part is coming up with something on the spot if you can't get the coverage you need.
Right. That's really difficult. Now, do you find it hard to kind of get rid of scenes and moments where that you really like those moments, but for for the rhythm of the story, the pace of the story, it may compromise it? Do you find yourself kind of having issues of taking those out? Do you dread those?
Yeah, there are a lot of scenes that were either shot or were scripted and were going to be included that couldn't be. And that's one thing that I have to say. I really, there's some scenes that I even wrote for this season that were going to be shot, but I knew, because I just like you, we edit as we go. So we're editing constantly every day after we shoot. And as you're building the scenes and everything, what's going to slow you down before you get there. So, this has to be this amount of time. This has to be this. There's a few scenes that were shot that I wish could be included, but just for the story purposes, they were just kind of there. If I ever do some kind of like DVD or Blu-ray release of all of the seasons, as bonus features, I have the footage still, so I would include them.
Right.
Or if not, I would talk about the stuff that wasn't shot that was going to be included, so people can have like an insight and be like, "Oh, that was pretty cool. I wish I could have seen that, but that was cool that they were thinking of that." So
Yeah, but for people to see why you cut it out.
yeah.
We say it's good, but it will probably slow it down, or maybe it will veer off to another direction, or whatever it is. And I think
Mhm.
that's one of the hardest things as being editor is, is cutting it down and taking away things you really, really liked. Like I really like that scene, but all in all, it's about the audience enjoyment, and it's going
Mhm.
to take it away and compromise it. It has to go.
Yeah.
So no, I get that. But when you even now, do you do the sound design as well? Like,
Um,
sound effects?
Yeah, I do the I mean, the sound effects. I mean, I get them offline, but
Hmm.
I'm the one that like puts them into sequence, slows them down, speeds them up.
Right, right.
Puts them in the places and whatnot. Um, and as far as that, that's kind of what I do. On the music end, I have a composer who is actually working on this one. And fun fact is, Caleb, the main actor of season 1, he and 2, he was the composer for all my projects up until Cold Dawn and this final season. My friend Arthur Lee Brown is the one who does the music for Cold Dawn and Darkest Case.
Oh, and trying to
So,
go last one. Now, when you looked for a composer,
mhm.
what were you looking for? Like when you look for a composer, just that sound, is there a characteristic that you look for within the music itself? Because it has to, of course, have a feel that you want. What do you look for, like in a composer?
Well, in all honesty, with Darkest Case season 1, I wasn't going to have anybody compose it. I was going to use copyrighted material for that. And Caleb came to me and he goes, "Hey, if you ever want to make money off of this thing, you can't do that." And
Right, right,
he,
right.
he kept talking me out of it. I was like, "Yeah, but this sounds cool." He's like, "No, man, I'll do it for you." So he kind of he got his way in there, and to his credit, came up with some really good themes. I mean, really fantastic stuff. And then when he said he wasn't available for this final season to finish off the seasons, what I did was give him a credit for coming up with the themes, and then Arthur came in and he did a new rendition, actually 2 renditions of the opening theme for the soundtrack, and really added some stuff to it. Really made that sound good too, and did something a little different because this season, being a different story, is not focused on the detectives. It's focused on something else, and so he brought something different, which is good because we switched
Yeah.
up the story. Something different had to be brought in anyway.
Now it's funny because with all the experience that you have gone through, right? Like all these years and going to different people, losing people, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
changing composers and just going through the process of growing as a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
What have you learned? Like with everything, you could always say, what, every day, this is always what I keep close to me. Like, what this is what helps me kind of keep moving. This is what I've learned.
I would say probably being humble. And the reason why is, for example, all my earlier stuff, anything that I've made, I learned something from, especially from the earlier stuff. I've learned so much on how to be a director, writer, actor, stuff like that. And I'd have to say that I've not always, and even to this day, there's still stuff I need to work on as a director. But even back in the day, I didn't really understand what I was really taking on. And I think after that first episode we made of season 1 of Darkest Case, I didn't realize I just made a 30-minute episode. And how long did it take me? And I was planning on doing 8 of them. I was planning on
Yeah.
making 8 episodes. And I wasn't always the greatest person to deal with on set. 8 episodes wouldn't have happened. So cutting them down was probably a smart thing. But, I needed to work on myself over the years. And you know, I think it's made me a better person because I'm not like in any way, shape, or form the best person out there to make movies. We all have our flaws and
We
whatnot,
do.
but I think as time has gone on, we definitely you learn to be more humble and respectful as a person. And I think that's something you should take away from it is always be humble because at the end of the day, this whole creative process is brought together by multiple people. It's not one person that's making it. It's
Right.
multiple people, and you have to respect that. So shout out to whoever, new or old, that has worked on anything. Like I said, again, I wouldn't be where I am without you, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So
Yeah, yeah, same here, man. That's it. That's
mhm.
really good to hear, man. Well, Thomas, man, I want to thank you so much for being on the show, bro. I mean, you told
Yeah.
us. I mean, you know, you really exposed a lot of yourself. We really appreciate that, as well
Mhm.
as your background and what you've done, and you know, your process. And I think a lot of people can take something from that. I know I can myself. And everyone out there, look for Thomas Frick's future projects. Go to YouTube, check out, say the name. I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
try
So my YouTube channel is sorry.
Perfect. That's all right. That's all right. I was all right.
It's Spotlight Frick. My last name is Frick 21. So Spotlight Frick 21, all one word. The shows that you can watch. The first show I ever did was Narrows. The second one is Darkest Case, which is currently working on its final season.
Okay.
And then my last film that I did was Cold Dawn. It's a short film. It's on there too. So you can view all that stuff right now for free on YouTube, and that's where you can get it.
Cool. And soon enough, he's going to have, you know, some distribution eventually and new projects. So look ahead and look for Thomas too in the World of Worlds in season 2. He'll be making a guest appearance in there somewhere. So see if you can find him. So keep that in there. So see what's up. All right, Thomas, thanks again, brother. And we will see you in the movies, man. And everyone out there, just subscribe for us and we'll be back for other things. Thomas, thanks again, man. All right.
Thanks again for having me.